Now, I think yesterday you were asking about how I taught the letters, and I do group them according to motor patterns. Now, I did print what I think your alphabet is, so I know that's different, but I'll just show you kind of what I'm thinking. All of these start at the top and come down, and so I've put those together and I've given them like a language. So like H is start tall, down, up, and over. And I try to use things that is familiar versus directions because I want them to have an understanding of what I'm talking about. Sometimes with our kids, understanding directions, left, right, curve over can be hard. But for example, like when I teach C, which helps you make O, which helps you make A, which helps you make D, I talk about a clock. And we start at 2 o'clock and we curve around. Because they can see a clock and image a clock versus just trying to make a curve sometimes can be a little too abstract for little kids. So we do that, and then this is like, you know, a lower grade kindergarten paper, and this is like a first grade paper. I do the same strategy with cursive. We group them together how they're similar and teach the ones that are similar, have similar strokes and patterns, because that makes the learning easier for them. And I'll leave you some samples of what the actual handwriting pages look like. And then this just shows you how, like, when we differentiate for different grades, this is an electronic page. It's like a website page that has all the materials for the teachers to access. And it's a Google Doc that I develop. And so in third grade, they would have, like, let me show you. They're obviously reviewing letters. So they've learned the actual cursive letters in second. So this might be what they would work on. They would trace them and try them here. And then they might do a tracking activity where they go through and put the right shape around the right letters, working from left to right and all of that, understanding the space and how to put shapes there. This is a handwriting laps page. That was the activity that I didn't get to share with you the other day because of time. Here they're copying E, L, and H, but you could just say, like I could say to you a letter, and you would write it over and over and over until you heard another letter and write it over and over and over, and I call that a listening lap. And I say those are handwriting laps, just like when you go to PE and you have to run and do laps. These are actual handwriting laps. So you might be focusing on the, you know, the basic spelling vocabulary word of like ball, and I might say, okay, here we go, we're going to lap up B, write B, and you would write it over and over and over. A, over and over and over, L, and then you could practice writing ball. So that's kind of what handwriting laps are, and then these are just the basic pages. But some of the kids can't do cursive, and so then I would provide the teacher with the exact same pack, but it's in print. But then some kids struggle so much with understanding space and where to place things that I provide a modified one. And it's print modified with a dark, bold writing line, a highlighted space to where they should write. And you can see how that's even reinforced more like on this page. Okay? And you'll see why that's important in just a minute. So right here, check our time, we're doing great. This little guy, at the time we were doing this, he was just learning cursive in kindergarten because the print is actually new for us. And it was the beginning of summer, and when I said write the alphabet without any supports, just from memory, this is what he put down. And we see like this weird spacing that drifts over here. We do see a mix of case, and we see capitals with lowercase. So I started working with him. And I had to use a lot of these visual supports. I did a lot of multisensory instruction to help him understand the letters. This is the same task, write the alphabet from memory, and you can see how he needs these visual guides. He can write his letters small and refined in this space, but he needs that visual support because understanding how to organize the space is really hard for him. Okay? Oh, but we can see right here, this is supposed to be an X, and he wrote a T. And that's a clue that you kind of struggle with that kind of crossing midline. Like that's a struggle with a lot of our kids being able to do that. So that's always, handwriting is always gives you clues to what's going on. And this is just a sample of him writing a sentence. And this was the end of our summer, and we'd made these gains, and it was like, how are we going to help him in class? So I modified his second grade curriculum. So this is what his handwriting pages look like. I provided those in for the teacher to use. And then his teacher and I decided that we needed to do more in class in language arts because he was having a hard time generalizing what he could do into class. So we set up a plan like during his dictation time in language arts that one day dictation would be writing in Play-Doh. One day would be writing on the chalkboard because it's much more resistive. One day, just for fun, they used their dry erase markers and wrote on the table and cleaned it off. And then one day we did shaving cream. And then, of course, there was a day where you actually put the pencil to paper. But providing these different multisensory supports helped him to understand and learn how to use handwriting more effectively in class. And so it's the same kid I showed you. We started out with this, and you can see he's just putting all of them in here, which is better than being all over the place, but he still doesn't have a real clear understanding of which letters are small and which letters are tall and all of that. And so we just devised a plan, and she continued to work and provide all these visual supports. They even did some keyboarding together, and you can see one of his end assessments, how much stronger he got from having this support. He still needs this, but he did make some really nice gains of understanding how to produce more legible handwriting. So this was a kid that I'd been teaching cursive for years. So this is where you learn from what you do, right? And he was supposed to copy something, and we're seeing all this kind of mixed case. You know, right here I'm seeing a capital print and all this stuff, and so we collaborated as a team and realized that we didn't really need to be doing cursive with anymore. And he is a child that really struggles with learning how to read. So we started print right in the middle of 3rd grade for him, actually. And I would put just simple colored dots in between here to help him with spacing. And it would be a clue to leave a space for his next word because he also struggled with putting the right space, letters in the right place. And then at his end of year assessment, when he was copying, you can see how this is much stronger when we went to print. He copied this as it's much better. He copied this from the board. He's still generalizing that from that distance. But when I asked him to do something quickly, this was a 2-minute time task, you can see it deteriorates a little bit, which just tells us he's got the skill, but we still have to make it stronger and more fluent, okay? This is a unique case, and I'm going to start it, and then she's going to kind of share how it transitioned from here to the next division. This is a little guy that has some significant motor deficits, and he has learned print the whole entire time. We do a lot of electronic support for him, but this would be the classic 2-minute drill. This is the 2-minute fact that we would do at the beginning of 4th grade handwriting. Let's write for 2 minutes and then try to earn a higher score, because I would put their score up here. And this is what his product looked like in 4th grade. And I even put the little dots for him to try to help with spacing, and it was still just too challenging. So we came up with a new plan to give him more supports, and this was my first attempt. Like, I just used highlighters just to see if it would help. And he could follow this very nicely. I changed the different colors to help him with the tracking down as well. And it was like, okay, this is effective. I can read what he's writing a lot better, and he can actually use his handwriting in a more functional manner. So based on that, I developed these like worksheets. So we could just print these and use them for anything that he had in class. It was like his new handwriting paper, okay? And we didn't want to always have color, right? And so I created a black and white one as well. And you can see when he wrote this, that's supposed to be Goofy, so that needs some help. Loves ham and cheese, and he wrote sandwiches, and it's supposed to be sandwich is one word, but he wrote sandwiches. So now I can kind of see, oh, so that I can see what he's actually thinking and where the error is. So anyway, I'll let Elizabeth jump in and tell you a little bit more about middle school.
So that student that you were looking at, he's now in the 5th grade, and so what we decided our plan for him would be for the 5th grade is we continue to work with him on his handwriting for short answers, things like that, but we've also got some technology involved now. So we have a program that's on his computer that we can change worksheets so that they show up on his computer screen, and then he can just type the answers. So we're kind of trying to move towards, we still work on his handwriting, but for longer assignments and for longer tests, he's really going to start to need that support from technology, because his product was being affected by his lack of motor skill. So he was writing less, giving less of an answer because the motor part was so hard for him. I do have one of the things that you can see, one of the ways we modified the handwriting for him. So this one was what we gave to the other students in the 5th grade. I have packets for you guys to take. They copied a sentence, and then this is what we did for Bryce. So he still has the highlighter, and he's writing one word. So for him, doing one word is useful on a test. So that's what we're kind of taking. So this is what the one classmate had, and this is and then some other ways that we've supported students in the class. Here's one student that's had some pretty significant motor challenges as well. Now he's in the 7th grade. This is what, like, the header that they have to write on the top of their paper. If he's just given a page like this, which is what most kids can do, this is what his look like. It's very hard to read. He has a hard time with sizing. He has a hard time with alignment. The letters are kind of running together. He runs out of room. So we thought, what can we do to help him? So we went to some graph paper with some outlines. So he could see the outline space, and we thought maybe he could try to write each letter in a box. That was still a little hard to read. So then we went to blank paper, but we gave him a different color for the outline. So now at least he can get his own header down. We had to do some practice on the date because the numbers were hard for him. But we're just trying to give him a way to give him a little bit more independence on writing that header at the top of his page. Then we took the color out, and again with him we're working on, can he get a single answer down on a test? That's about where he is too. So we practiced numbers, and we practiced short words. So he went from there to there. And these were just modifications that are easy to do. You just need a different colored pen and some blank paper.
Another understanding that's so important. Just sometimes having that visual can just be so important.
So another thing that's often a struggle in the middle school is getting homework down. So this is a photocopy page from one of our students writing his homework down. And as you can see, from a parent's perspective, that would be hard to know, what is his homework? And some of them the teacher had to add because it was hard to read. So we thought, what can we do for him? What he's doing is he just doesn't have a great organization. He's not good at, he doesn't need to write his letters that big. He just is kind of filling the space. There's too much going on the page. So we kind of modified his homework. So he can still do it by himself, but there's more space. It's easier, it's just more organized than that. So now this goes home to his parents instead of this. And again, it wasn't, it's not super hard to do, but it really made a difference for his homework completion and for his mother's sanity. Then we just do some, here, this is another little boy. This was him at the beginning of the year. And when he wrote pretty big, and it was started to become hard to read because the lines, especially as it got longer, the lines started to bleed together. So I taught him, let's skip a line. So at first I had to color the line dark so that he would remember to skip, but now he's gotten to where he can do it by himself. So now he remembers, oh, when I'm writing something down, if I remember to skip a line, it'll be a lot easier. So from here to here, that's a lot easier too. What else do I have over here? This is just how I use highlighters sometimes. So this little boy has trouble remembering spaces just like Courtney did. And so for the 5th grade, we're trying to move it to be a little bit more independent. So he went through and put this highlighter mark between each word before he went and copied it. so it reminded him. So it's a strategy that in the lower school the teachers could do for them, and then by the time they get to the middle school, we've learned that strategy, now let's do it ourselves so that when we get our homework we can remember for ourselves. And then we did the same thing for this little boy. He needed help with spacing and with alignment. So up here, see how he starts to come down off the line? So he highlighted his line so it would help him remember, I've got to stay on this line. And then for him, this was his writing without anything. I just said, write this. And then I said, here's your highlighter, now give yourself a highlighted line. And then his size got better. It's, you know, he remembered to leave a space. It just helped him like organize his writing. Because this is on the same day. It's seriously 2 minutes after.
Yeah. These are some of the things that you saw before, and the things that we can kind of talk about and go through. Like we do have alternative seating positions. Okay, that comes from a sensory perspective when we learned about that small cup, big cup kind of thing. If you see that they're needing something, sometimes it's very beneficial. They need to move. And some kids need to move to learn. Like they have to recruit other senses in order to attend. And so this is a way to provide them their input in the space for them to learn. Writing in Play-Doh, which we're going to have a few minutes. I'll let you come over and actually explore some materials and see. But when you write on paper, and like you've been doing, and then you go in and we make the Play-Doh pancake and you write in it, your hand has to drag through it. So if you can't really feel your hands very well, like you don't process it, you can feel what your hand is doing when it runs through that Play-Doh because it's very resistive. Another thing that's been really great for our students that's kind of been new in the past couple of years is during handwriting I would hear a lot of talking. And there would be excess talking all the time. Well, first of all, it's maybe a hard task for them, so it could be for whatever reason. So we started letting them listen to books with earbuds or headphones. So these are like play-away books. And it's been amazing how all that talking goes down and they can still focus. They still listen to me. They still complete their works while they're listening to that story. It just helps them to be a better student. And that has to do sometimes with that auditory processing. Even kind of like movers, sometimes that helps because they're just wanting more input and it gives them more input. The slant boards that you might have seen, which are right there, we know that when you write on the board or a slanted surface, it helps to strengthen your arm because it helps to break up and support the arm in the right way so they can develop their grasp better. That can be a big, like 4-inch notebook binder. It doesn't have to be a fancy slant board. You can just take a big binder, turn it on its side, and use it. Like